Good evening, welcome to Close Up. The People's Democratic Party is among a host of new parties that will contest the 2014 elections, now just a week away. Can the party establish itself on Fiji's political scene? And what are its strategies and policies to take the country forward? We have with us on the show tonight the leader of the PDP leader, Felix Anthony. Welcome to Close Up.
Thank you for having me.
Now, the party is new, but you are no stranger to politics and elections. You stood under the elections, under previous elections, under the Labour Party under Mahendra Chaudhry. What's the experience for you now going into the elections as party leader?
Well, these are certainly interesting times for me and for the party. It is no easy task to form a party and go straight into elections immediately. But there has been a necessity for forming the People's Democratic Party for the simple reason that over the past 7 years we've had our human rights being violated, our workers' rights being violated, indigenous rights being violated, and we believe that we needed a party that was truly multiracial, that cut across different classes and represented the people who mattered most in Fiji.
Now, initially, those things that you mentioned, that used to be what the Labour Party says it stood for. So what's different about PDP from the Labour Party?
Well, the difference is that the PDP is a truly multiracial party. It is truly a workers' party. It's truly a party that represents the underprivileged in our society, the poorest in our society, while at the same time looking after the interest of all other people in the country. So we believe that...
Is it looking just after the interest of workers?
No, it is not. We believe that for Fiji to move forward, we need a truly multiracial party. The party is looking after the interest of all the people in the country, and with particular emphasis on workers, particular emphasis on the poor people in our country, the underprivileged, and those that need government assistance most.
Right, there are 7 party leaders. Mahendra Chaudhry now is not standing, but notable among them is retired Rear Admiral Bainimarama, Rote Mumukepa, Biman Prasad, Filimo Nevasorongo. Why should people choose Felix Anthony?
Yes, I believe people should choose Felix Anthony because I have a track record that spans about 32 years. I've stood up for the workers of this country. I've represented the workers in this country. I've stood up in most difficult times that we've faced in this country, and that includes the 87 coups, the 2000 coups, the 2006 coups. I have not in any way attempted to leave the country or to compromise my position insofar as democracy goes, insofar as workers' rights go in this country, and insofar as human rights go in this country.
You have a track record of representing the workers. What can you do different this time? Can you unite the country?
Yes, I think we've already taken steps to do that.
People see Felix Anthony as a person who divides the country, not unites the country. Well,
I think people who see it that way are not looking at the true picture here. We, in the trade union movement, I think people need to understand that in the most difficult of times in Fiji's history, it is the only trade union movement that has stood out, maintained its multiracial makeup, maintained its democratic makeup, and also that the trade unions were was the only organization in the country that kept people together, had a common goal, and stuck together and carried out the struggle it is mandated to do.
Right.
So with the People's Democratic Party, we take cue from that because, as you know, the People's Democratic Party was formed by the workers of this country, by the Fiji Trade Union Congress, and we believe that the party needs to be truly multiracial makeup. It has to cut across classes, and it has to address the needs of the poorest in our society.
All right, you will see in these coming elections if that translates into something moving forward. Now, you said you have a track record of standing up for democracy. However, many people don't agree with that. A lot of people say that you actually supported the takeover of government in 2006 and collaborated with the Bainimarama government.
Well, that's absolutely untrue. I have never supported any coups in this country. In fact, in every coup, I have been put in prison. And not only me, but my family have suffered greatly.
Not in 2006, you were put on the FNPF board instead.
No, I was on the FNPF board by virtue of me being the National Secretary of the Fiji Trades Union Congress. Yeah? And that is what the law required. And not only that, but that was also my obligation as National Secretary to make sure that the Workers' Superannuation Fund was safe. And that's the role I performed. But let me also say that I did also go to prison in 2000, after the 2006 coups.
Yes, we'll talk about 2006. Now, let me touch on that, because some people say, yeah, you may say you did not support it, but you did not oppose it either.
Oh, that's untrue as well. That's untrue as well.
I think people
who say this are basically my detractors who try and spread untrue rumors. But let me just say that I have never supported any coup. We have, the Fiji Trades Union Congress is on record as condemning all the coups that have happened. Yeah, that includes 2006. And I must say that soon after the coup took place, I convened a National Council meeting of the FTUC where we did take a resolution to condemn the coup, to say that we will not support any illegal takeover.
But be part of the cleanup of the FNPF?
No, let me also say that the decision to be on the board of FNPF was that of the National Council of Fiji Trades Union Congress, and the main purpose was to ensure that workers' superannuation funds were safe, and that we needed to make sure that wherever, you will recall that at that time there was a lot of concern about the board of FNPF, the previous board of FNPF, yes, making decisions on investment and major investments like Momi and Natandola, yes, and all that. So
I will not want to get into that, but so you also said that you have a track record on human rights. However, your critics, and I know there's been a lot of Felix Anthony bashing over the last few weeks, but your critics also say that you turned a blind eye and kept silent when fellow unionists who had their rights abused and were taken, they're victimized and denied their rights, like people like Atar Singh and the others. Well, in 2007, when the military was taking Taniela Tambu and Atar Singh and other unionists up, they're saying Felix Anthony did not stand up for them.
Well, that is again untrue, and I don't expect Atar Singh to actually thank me for everything I do, but we are on record again as raising this issue with government, and I personally, I think, raised the matter with the Prime Minister, that our concerns, I raised this matter at the international level as well, and even at the International Labour Organization. So there are records that will show that.
It's on record that you condemned when Atar and the others, Tevita Koroi and Taniela Tambu were
Yes, we took a position on that, and I think if one was to go through even the ILO records, you would see that these matters were reported.
So let me quote this academic Vijay Naidu. He says, while FTUC leaders have enjoyed the perks of office as board members on the statutory bodies like FNPF, their opponents in FICTU who have opposed the regime, such as Atar Singh, Tevita Koroi and Taniela Tambu, have been threatened, detained and even assaulted by the military. And this happened with the FTUC doing nothing about it.
That's absolutely untrue. I'm not going to comment on what Vijay Naidu says. That's his opinion. I don't know how he's arrived at that opinion, and I'll leave it to him to explain that.
So you're comfortable with what you did and how you the FTUC, what they did after the 2006?
Definitely.
All right, we're with Felix Anthony, the leader of the PDP. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Close Up. We're with Mr. Felix Anthony, the leader of the PDP. Now, your fellow unionists like Atar Singh and others have criticized you in the past. We've gone through that, but not only them have criticized you, also the government then criticized you. The Attorney General Ayar Said Qayyum actually accuses you of actually colluding with him and Rajeshwar Singh to get Rajeshwar Singh to soften his stance on the 5% pay cut across the board.
That's absolutely untrue as well. I don't know where all these allegations stem from, but yes, this is election time, and allegations fly from all sides. And I think these allegations are simply baseless, and I do not wish to get into them. They're not going to change anyone's lives in this country.
All right. So this is what he says, that you met at a coffee shop and you actually discussed how the unions will actually support the 5% pay cut across the board.
Felix Anthony or the trade union movement will never support any pay cut for workers. To the contrary, we fight for workers to get decent wages. And that's been our history, and that's been our tradition. And that's what we will do. And that's what we will do even after the elections. And you will see in the People's Democratic Party manifesto, we're talking about raising the minimum wage of workers again.
So the Attorney General is not telling the truth there?
Well, of course he's not, if that's what he said.
That is what he said. He's on record of saying that. He has also said, and I'll give you a chance to respond, because he says they are driving BMWs, they are driving Pajeros, they have nice homes, they probably have 2 or 3 homes, yet they claim to be representing workers, but they're undermining these very workers that they pretend to represent.
Well, I don't think those allegations deserve a response from me. They are irrelevant. They don't matter to people at the time or even now. That is not going to impact people's lives as they are today. Today, the main issue here is about people, it's about food on the table for our people. And I would rather talk about that than silly allegations that the AG makes all the time.
And I agree, but people will be wanting to ask, can we trust Felix Anthony?
Well, I think the bigger issue is, can we trust the AG? He's been in government for 8 years now. He's made all the promises and none of them have been kept. And that includes a transparent and accountable government. That includes cleaning up corruption. We see that this government is the most corrupt government that we've ever had. There's been absolutely no accountability or transparency in this government. We haven't seen the Auditor General's report for the last 7 years. All we've seen is decrease, decrease, and decrease anytime the AG wants to impose decrees on the people. What we've also seen is that this government has also made promises about upholding the 1997 Constitution. Again, they haven't kept that promise. This government has promised the people that it would have elections in 2009. Again, they have not kept this promise. So if I were to go down the list, I can cite many examples of where this government has not kept its promises and therefore should not be trusted.
Well, he has cited one example, and you've been questioned about it over these last few weeks, about these FNPF board fees that you received, a tune of up to 185,000, which they said eventually led to them having to remove you and throw you out of the FNPF board because you were making a lot of money sitting on about 7 subsidiaries of the FNPF board. They said you were on the subsidiary, on FNPF board, you were getting funds from that, then you were on the Home Finance Limited board, ATH board, FNPF Investments Limited board, Natandala Bay Resort Limited board, Telecom Fiji Limited board, Yatule Beach Resort Limited board, and the Vodafone Fiji Limited, and you got allowances for all of that. And because of that, they had to remove you.
Well, let me just say one thing. That again, that is untrue, right? The board fees that was paid to me was paid like to every other director that sat on these boards. It wasn't solely me alone, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah. When people do sit on boards, they get paid. Yeah, it's not charity work that people do. But let me also say that the reason why we were removed from the board was because we did not wish to abide by a directive that government gave to the FNPF board that we should set aside something like $500 million to buy government bonds to offset the budget deficit at the time.
So that's the reason.
So that's the reason that that government decided that not only me but the entire board had to be removed.
Because a lot of people say, look, you're probably right, you were entitled to it, but you know, you're a workers' representative. You'd think that those were the hard-earned money of the workers. Did you think that was a fair way of paying it, paying that money out to the board directors?
That was what was paid to board directors well before. It's been there all the time. It was standard. It's not something that we introduced. It's not something that we reviewed at all. That was there from donkey's
but
years.
after you left, they removed that.
No, they did not remove it.
They say that they removed it.
No, they did not. I think there are two directors who voluntarily said that they were not going to accept the fees. But let me also say that we continue to have the directors of FNPF sitting on various boards as well.
Yes.
They're not only sitting on one. And
this is what the FNPF says. Unlike previous board practices, subsidiary companies' board fees are paid back to FNPF and not to individual directors.
Well, I'm not aware of the current practice anymore.
Now, you then fell out because, let's take a point, you did not agree to some of the policies, the 500 million that they wanted to take from FNPF, correct?
Yep.
And then you started to become a very strong critic. That's when people say, that's when Felix Anthony became a strong critic. That's when we started to hear Felix Anthony after he came out of the FNPF board.
No, that's untrue. I think people need to understand that it was 2009 when the Constitution was abrogated. Our rights were being taken away. That's when the alarm bells rang, that we were assured that this regime was going to uphold the Constitution and therefore the Bill of Rights within the Constitution. Once the Constitution was abrogated, that really meant that people did not have any rights. And that's where we got very concerned about.
Very concerned, and you started to speak out quite strongly.
Yes.
And in 2011, you claim, unfortunately, you claim that you were bashed, physically assaulted by the security forces for speaking out. Can you confirm that?
Yes, I was assaulted by the security forces in Rarawai Mill and of course also in the military camp at Nandi Airport as well. And not only that, but soon after that or later on in the same year, I was imprisoned for something like 9-10 days for no reason whatsoever. Again, just after that, I've received numerous threats from the military, and in fact, one of them in your own presence, I think. So this has been a continuing thing.
All right, before we go to break, let me ask, how has that affected you?
Oh, that's only made me stronger. That's made me more committed to the cause. That's actually, that is what actually carries me today, that we are going to continue this struggle until we get people's rights restored, we get people, give people back their respect and dignity as well, because with those rights do come respect and dignity. So
all right. We're with Felix Anthony, leader of the PDP. Don't go away. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Close Up. We are catching up with Felix Anthony, leader of the PDP. Now we have a lot to catch up on, but we don't have much time, so we'll have to go back to now to the way forward. What do you see are the key choices for voters when they head into the booths on September 17th? Actually, some of them are heading there now. What should be the key choices they have in their mind?
Well, I believe the main issue today for our people is food on the table. We have some serious issues at the moment, and they include the key issues, I believe, are the issues of rights, as I've said, human rights, workers' rights, indigenous rights. We're talking about poverty levels, we're talking about unemployment in the country, we're talking about a failing medical system in our country, and we're talking about a decline in our education standards in the country. These are, I believe, the main issues that people need to be concerned about and decide on who to vote for.
That's interesting, because the Fiji First Party, the government that's now saying, judge us by what we have achieved, and they said we have delivered better than any other elected government.
Well, that's absolutely untrue. I mean, if we're going to judge this government on its track records, I think to start off with, this government has not kept any promises, as I've mentioned earlier on, to the people itself. This government has imposed a constitution on the people of this country, which is not what the people wanted. And despite doing that, they had the audacity to write on the first page of the Constitution that we, the people of Fiji, give ourselves this Constitution. The reality is that it's Bainimarama and Qayyum that gave the people of this country this Constitution. The track record for this government is record unemployment in this country. There's record poverty. Our people are getting poorer in this country. The gap between the rich and the poor has widened.
What is the unemployment rate and the poverty rate then?
Well, the official rates are around 8.7%. But we believe that these are understated. We believe that it's in excess of 15%. And that is not taking into account the underemployment that exists in this country.
So it's easy to criticize, but what are you going to do to change that if you get into power?
Well, yes, that's a good question. Yes, our manifesto has got provisions. One is, of course, to restore the rights of our people, our human rights, to remove any decree that violates workers' rights, human rights, or indigenous rights in any way. And that's should not take us much time to do, and that's not going to cost us money. The second thing we want to look at is poverty levels, to see how we can assist the people at the very bottom of the ladder, how we can improve the standard of living of our people. We must look at the elderly in our society, right? People with special needs in our society. Also, we must look at our pension schemes, the FNPF pension schemes, to make sure that when people do retire, they indeed have a secure future and not be condemned to poverty after retirement. We have in our manifesto policies that would create jobs for our people. Each time our people went back to work, and more particularly our young people who come out of universities and are unable to find employment in this country.
Very good policies. They sound nice, but you said yourself they come at a cost. How will you fund it?
Well,
are you going to take another loan or take some more loans or debt?
No, I believe that if you...
Because it's easy to say that, but you have to find the money for it.
Yes, let me finish this. I believe that if you looked at our manifesto, the only promises that we are making is to the most poorest in our society, the underprivileged. We are not making any fancy promises like a guaranteed cane price of $80 or $85. That's not our policy, right? And what we're saying is that we need to address the most urgent matters, and they are to do with the most poorest in our society. And we will, as a government, cut down on the wastages that we have in this current government, that one. But number two, I think importantly, if that is not sufficient, we will find money, prioritize to assist the poorest in our society. And I believe
find money from
that's from our revenue, to prioritize that we help the people at the bottom of the ladder. We do not believe in trickle-down economics. We don't believe that if businesses do well, everyone else will do well. We've tried that, and it has failed our people.
Well, that's an interesting comment, because a lot of business people don't trust you. Exactly for this, that Felix Anthony is a unionist. All he's concerned about is the workers. Can you give the business community in this country confidence if you do get into power?
Oh yes, I believe that they will see Felix Anthony as being a fair person. What is fair to the workers must be given to the workers. What is fair to employers in the country must be given to employers in the country. That is how we will work. Now, I know there are some employers in the country who don't believe that workers deserve a decent minimum wage in the country. I disagree with them. I believe that workers in this country deserve a decent minimum wage, and that minimum wage needs to be where the poverty line is. Of course, that is not achievable overnight. It will be done in stages, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. Small and medium-sized enterprises may take longer. But that is something we are committed to do, and I know that some employers may not like that. But that is the right thing to do. That is the fair thing to do if we are talking about improving the standard of living of our workers, of our poor people in the country.
All right, now, before we close off, can Felix Anthony and the PDP unite Fiji? What will you do to unite this country? We have seen in this last few weeks, the country seems to be getting more divided as it was in the past, along racial lines, along ethnic lines, amongst all the different divisions that were there in the past. What can you different that will unite the country?
Well, I think we have already started on that journey, and that is to make sure that the party is truly multiracial. That is the starting point.
That's what all the other parties are saying.
The only difference is that this party has only become multiracial when elections come around. After elections, they go back to the old ways. And if we were to truly examine all these parties, you will see very clearly the makeup, the structures of these parties. The people on the management boards of these parties are not multiracial. They are dominated by one particular race or the other. And that's clear. Simply fielding few different races as candidates in an election does not make a party multiracial. It has to be truly multiracial in its old structures as well. Decision-making of the party needs to be multiracial as well.
To the point, how will you unite the country?
As I've said, that's the starting point.
Right.
Right? We believe the only way this country can move forward is if all races start working together. Our manifesto has got provisions that will look at how we can bring the races together closer. We need, if we want a single name for ourselves, I think we need a single language to start off with. We need to know tradition and cultures of indigenous people and all other races as well. These are issues that will be given serious consideration to get the people to move forward. Unfortunately, we still have political parties in this country who preach race, and that's been a negative for us. But as far as the People's Democratic Party go, you will see in our structures we have people from all races, and when we talk about multiracialism or multiculturalism, we mean from the bottom up, and not just having a few people on the top.
All right. Felix Anthony, leader of the PDP, thank you for joining me on Close Up.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you for joining us on Close Up for our election special.